We're here. Yay.
We are really excited about our conversation today. We are with Noelle. Noelle, could you introduce yourself and tell our audience who you are and why you do what you do?
Okay. Oh, hi, everybody. And thank you, Lauren and Lisa, for having me here tonight. I'm really happy about that. I am Noelle Imperato, and I'm a little bit of a Renaissance woman, you might say. I started studying architecture and then film, and then I'm born in France, but then I went to Hollywood. I worked there for a while, and I had all in my mind some kind of a life purpose, you might say, that I wanted to do something to wake up people, spiritually wake up people, because I had seen some documentary on television of Sri Aurobindo, and it had such an impact on me when I was 15 years old that I thought, wow, I really would like to be able to. I mean, I'm not pretending to be Sri Aurobindo, but I would like to do something that has an impact on people. And so I was not really able to do what I wanted with film. So then somehow I landed into art therapy or process art, because it's not art therapy for people with really critically mental problems. It's more like coaching, it's more for people who want to improve themselves, to want to self transform and wake up spiritually, clean up psychologically, and then also create community. And with the pandemic, amazingly enough, it sort of worked out for us, because at first I was thinking, like, how can I do painting on Zoom? And but it turned out the workshop that I lead basically is very grounded in Zoom sharing, or in group sharing, I should say. And we have a half hour sharing at the top, and then painting for people go at home and do that on their own. And then we have another half hour at the ending where they share. So it all worked out. That created some kind of a community that has been with me now for over 2 years, and it has given us a chance to really build up on more than what I was doing before, and use the group community and what I discovered they call the we space, and really kind of develop that aspect.
Yeah. So you let Lisa and I have a sneak peek at your book, Painting for Life, and it's 40 portraits and sort of divided into chapters, and it feels like a memoir. It's like memoir, critique, story timeline, and we got a chance to read it. It was amazing. Thank you for that opportunity. And it sparked the question that we want to ask you today, which is, how did painting save your life?
Well, painting came at a later time in my life, as I say, even though as an architect student, I had learned how to draw, and I always loved art and painting a little bit, but I never really had the inspiration, the discipline, or anything to do that. And then by discovering this approach to painting that I actually learned at the SLN Institute in Big Sur, California, and it was a painting approach where you don't know what you are going to do. You are not doing a product. Actually, the teacher, Michel Cassou, was always telling us the product is none of your business.
I like that.
I was very much against all the kind of a teaching that they give you in school. And what I discovered with that is, like, you can't have no inspiration, because basically you are working from your present moment emotional states and emotional memories and thinking and all that stuff. But even as you go through the memories, it's always about being present in the very moment and seeing the transformation of the images and following with it in a very natural, spontaneous way. And what happened is that I was able to sort of have a cathartic experience, which is
Mhm.
I think, the first thing everybody has when they want to paint without restraint. And I realized how much anger I was still carrying, um,
Mm.
because my childhood, well, we might not want to get too heavily into that, but I had a lot of anger against my mother, especially. And I mean, I'm pretty positive kind of a person. I laugh a lot. Everybody think I'm like very happy and everything, but this anger was still there. And then
Mm.
painting allowed me to reconnect with it. And just that in itself is healing. And then it also, the technique allowed me to sort of work with it so that I can go beneath it. I can see that even under such terrible anger, you might say, there was love. And
Mm.
the painting actually painted themselves. It's not me who decided to do this or that. It just kind of came up, and then I look at the painting and I see how I transformed during the
Mm.
painting. And my rage at the end of like took me like that first painting took me like 2 or 3 days to do, and we were working 3 sessions a day every day. And so it was very intense work. But I started with a lot of anger and I ended up with grace.
Grace. Wow.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
I
beautiful.
had a fabulous experience where, yeah, I felt like I had warm, silky honey running down my spine.
Oh, I love that visualization. What I'm hearing is that this process is you're really playing or dancing with your subconscious, right?
Mm.
And so, how do you do that? Because we're so trained and conditioned not to dance with our subconscious. Do you know what I mean? How did you do that? Do you know?
Oh, perhaps what helped me to be able to do that, I think there are probably many different factors, but for me personally, I was already 40 years old or something like that when I discovered this approach to painting. And I was at a point in my life where I was ready to feel like, okay, enough of that track, I need
Mhm.
to change. And so there was a strong intention in changing and transforming.
Mm.
And that was sort of supported on top of it because I quit my work in Hollywood and I enrolled at Pacifica Graduate Institute, to in a department of mythology and depth
Mm.
psychology. So we were engulfed very heavily into Carl Jung's
Mhm.
psychology and the Carl Jung sort of process, of shadow work, the idea of shadow
Mhm.
work,
Mhm.
and then the idea also of the archetype, the myth, and how psyche is image, And so I was writing my dissertation about a family crisis, and seeing it from a mythological sort of point
Mhm.
of view. So I was sort of immersed into a
Mhm.
lot of stories, a lot of theories, a lot of personal research. And then when I went to SLN, I didn't know even what to expect. I had a
Mhm.
week vacation and I looked at their catalog and I said, okay, out of the 5
Mhm.
workshops they present every week, I thought, oh, well, that sounds like fun. But then when I got there, it's a 7-day workshop, very intense. At the end, I was like so transformed, so unbelievably, you know, absolutely ecstatic about the process. And so I just decided right away, this is for me.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So through throughout your book, there's you dive extremely deep into your own personal story and are very open. It's clear that you've done, that dive deep work and that the painting is almost talking to you as you're talking about the painting and talking
Mhm.
back and forth. And you talk about you mentioned something called like that, you have to know yourself in order to go through that personal transformation. and come back in a positive way. And that also leads to this idea of social transformation that we can transform as a society. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us? I found that really interesting.
Oh, transforming as a society. Well, I'm very much grounded in Buddhist meditation and Buddhist theory or wisdom. And so the idea basically, every time I do a workshop, I always end up by having a big virtual hug now. When we do it in the studio, we were always having a big group hug. And we say, may all beings be happy. And I always introduce that for the beginners is the idea that when you heal yourself, you heal the world. And, there is probably more than one way to look at that statement, but at the deep root, I would say it's the idea that we are not separated. We are so connected with each other that even at a nano level, whatever you do makes a difference for good or for bad. So if you do it for good, if you self transform, you probably see it around you, you have a different influence around the people that you are in contact with. And then at a deeper level, I believe, maybe the soul level, you might say, or the spirit level, you might be just a little drop in the ocean, but like the Chinese say, the bucket is getting full drop by drop.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it makes me think of like if we're all a system, if one part of the system's broken, the system doesn't work and we're not in harmony, right? And so, when you heal yourself, you're creating harmony within the system itself.
Yeah. And this directly, I think perhaps with my family, for instance, for me to go through this entire process of trying to clear out the past, it allows me to be able to look at my sisters and even the one who did things that were not very nice to me. I don't want to carry those bad feeling to my tomb. So I'm trying even to this day, like I'm going to go to France, in next week. And I'm planning to spend a week with the sister, which she wasn't too sure she wanted to spend a week with. And she never talked to the other one for like, I don't know how long. They have a very bad fight between the two of them. But because I will be there, she agreed to also be there with the other one.
Oh wow!
So
have you ever tried to make art with them?
Have
you all ever made art together?
Oh no. No, I wish I could. I have a friend who is a bit in the same situation. She comes from a big family. Like we were 9 children. She comes from 17 children.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But she's from California. And, they are from a very, I wouldn't say poor, but kind of a, not very well off family. And they never went much to school, most of them. She is the only one, and my friend I met her at Pacifica, so she got a PhD, but she's the only one in her family. And then she wrote a book kind of like similar to what I'm doing. But then she describes how she had all her sisters gathered together in Big Sur, out of all places. And they did like ceremonies, like New Age ceremony, you might say, sharing stories. And but I mean, I told her, oh my God, you were able to do this with your family, I couldn't even think anything like this. I tried. The best I did was to organize some group, family gathering of all the siblings around the dining table without wine.
Funny.
and discuss what we had to discuss. And I brought with me an eagle feather,
Oh.
and I presented it like, this is the talking stick.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And we each listen to each other, and the one who has the talking stick is the only one who can speak. So we did that twice, two years in a row, and those meetings were the only meetings we ever had where people were able to speak and listen to each other in a civilized way.
Right.
I love that. What it brings,
That's good.
I love this quote from your book. It says, "My story, it is also my truth. It is a gift to the world." Can you talk about that? My story is my truth, and it is the gift to the world. And how can other people share their story and be it a gift to the world?
Yeah, well, it was first a gift to me because to paint and in this manner, allowed me to really clear up a lot of the bad feelings. I certainly allowed me to do a big job in terms of cleaning up the shadow, you might say,
Mhm, mhm.
and allowing, as I went through, you may have noticed that towards the end of those 15 years that the book cover, I was able to go into the studio and come from a place of a higher state of mind, not,
Mhm.
you don't, the shadow is good, but also reaching the light is also
Mhm.
important. So it helped me a lot. And I think that telling my story in detail and very honestly and with
Mhm.
as much integrity as I could muster, I think it helps also because a lot of the trouble with this shadow
Mhm.
is that is as its name is telling you, it's like it stays in the back. It
Mhm.
always stays out of mind, out of sight, and of course it carries all the shame, all the difficult aspect of who we are that we don't
Mhm.
really like to recognize very easily. We prefer to think of ourselves as some kind of a white knight, but even though we don't talk about it, think about it, or even recognize it, or in my case, I have a story where it was completely erased from my memory. Well, those materials are still in our subconscious and they still, we don't know about them, but they know about us. They actually make us. They're actually the one who are triggering us. And then when we come home at night and we are like, hmm, why did I say this to this person in this condition? That's
Mhm.
really wasn't too smart. But you just kind of blabbered it out without thinking,
Mhm.
and that's where it comes from. You might wonder, why did I do it? But then that was that part of you that's kind of in the subconscious into darkness, and it works. It makes you work. It pushes you to do things you don't know why you are doing it. So clearing out the darkness and bringing it to light is a very healthy work to do psychologically and
Mhm.
spiritually, because it clears up your slate. Then you have a more peaceful mind, more open to be able to go deeper, not just into that shallow subconsciousness, but into deep true nature of who you are.
Mm. Nice. Nice.
So, for someone who can't get themselves to a workshop, Big Sur, maybe they're not ready for that or they just can't. Is there something that they could do at home, to start those small steps towards this kind of work that you're talking about? Would you have any suggestions for folks like that?
Well, yeah, actually, that's why I'm writing a second book. The first
Mm.
one being, just my story and how it works
Mhm.
and what I went through. So I try to interweave the story with some kind of a principle. But the second book is the method. So after writing my own book, and after having led many years of workshop, it has evolved. It has become a little bit more complex. It's very open kind of a thing. You can it it depends on who is leading the workshop. So
Mhm.
you can integrate a lot of different technique, and you can never do it all at once. So you can choose, and you have to be in kind of a sync with your audience, your participants. So you don't talk about something that they are not interested. So it also, depending on who you are having as a participant, will dictate a little bit what kind of workshop you have. But I'm trying to cover at least 8 or 9 different methods, you might say, different tools, different technique, different approach, and to make them more clear, more understandable, so that people, if they read both books, the first one I think is kind of exciting because it's just a story mostly. And then the second one is more like a practical how to, a workbook. And then if you really go through that, you learn a lot of different things. And then depending who you are going to be able to put them into practice or not.
What I've noticed is, I might be wrong, but a lot of the premise or the process of this work is painting and then writing about it. So the
Yeah,
reflection process, right?
yeah. I believe both together are working better, because that's what happened with me. I did the painting for a long time, and then
Mhm.
when I spent like 3 years to write the
Mhm.
book, it forced me to relook at the painting. And then when I was comparing them, when I was also digging into what is that all about, then I kind of fleshed out. But what I realized is that the painting were telling things that I was not sure I was what I was doing, what I was actually painting them. And unless I spent time after looking at them and kind of pondering about it, it's not going to reveal all of its information unless you take the time to think about it. And for me, the best way to think about it is to write in your journal, for instance, and listen to the painting. Because if you really go deep into the subconscious when you paint, that's a good thing about painting also, because you don't have to have the words up in the top of your mind.
Mhm.
You don't really know exactly what you are doing, and it's coming more spontaneously from the subconscious. And that's why we use things like tempera paint and poster boards, and this admonition, the product is none of your business, because these free you completely from being worried about wasting an expensive canvas or
Mhm.
expensive paints, and making sure you do something that you can show to your mom.
Mhm.
This is like, keep it out of there. Don't
Mhm.
put it on your refrigerator. It's
Mhm.
better to put it underneath your bed, because this at first is very private. And within the workshop, everybody is sort of stimulating each other. Let's say somebody is going through a divorce or whatever, something
Mhm.
kind of very difficult, and they are sharing about what they are going through. Well, you may not be going through a divorce, but maybe you have some difficulty with your partner, and listening to somebody and seeing that that person is able to actually voice it out loud, and share it with others. That alone sort of gives you the confidence and also wakes you up, like, oh, but I can feel that I'm going actually through something very similar. So it wakes you up. It gives you permission to accept whatever is going on within yourself.
Mhm.
And they are not all that different. So that's what happened when I went to Big Sur, to SLN, because that was way back in the 90s, early 90s, and late 90s. Um, anyway, I am French, coming from, a very square background, you might say, upbringing, Catholic, and blah blah blah. So I have a certain restriction, sort of built in. And here I was, SLN, which was the granddaddy of all those self transformation center that started, with everybody naked on LSD, basically. Uh, so those women around me, like we were a group of 20 people, so it was a pretty big group, and there were men and women, but a majority of women. And they were doing painting, like we were not looking at each other during the session, but in between session we could walk around the room, and I was looking at their painting, and I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Can do that. I think I can do it too. It just gave me permission.
Mm.
Yeah, it sounds like from I'm thinking back to all the conversations we've had about people who have kind of discovered how art can be a personal positive transformation tool, and a lot of it feels like you have to be in a certain place and time in your life, and then it's like something opens up, and then you discover this art. And for you, it's was painting, but it sounds like it's like painting almost opens up the part of your brain that can then come back and find the words to describe and go through the process of almost talking about trauma to yourself and then to other people. And it's like this, I don't want to use the word middleman, but it almost is. It's like this middleman that exists inside of you that just needs to come out in order for you to have that conversation with yourself.
Oh, well, that's one way I suppose to look at it. I don't know if I look at it that way. I look at it more like thinking, when you are into talk therapy, you are thinking, and thinking is coming from your thinking mind,
Right.
which is basically what the neuroscientists now call your default mode of operation, which is the thinking mind that we are using in ordinary daily life. And what they have also discovered is that if you quiet down that thinking mind, instead of being very active, if for whatever reason you quiet it down, then there are other circuitry in the brain that kick in. And those are the ones where you are more like at one with everything. And where your ego is no longer at the wheel, you might say. It might still be hanging around somewhere, but it's not driving the way you think and the way you act. So when the painting is like the a creative activity, it could be another kind of art, but for me, painting is the right way. Music, I'm totally not good with music, but I think musicians are experiencing the same thing. Is when you go into the creative mind, that's what it does. It sort of automatically quiet down that default mode of operation, which is basically the place driven by the ego. So that sort of goes to silence. And then another part, which is a lot more the part that, where the mystical experiences may happen. So now mystical experience is no longer some kind of woo-woo stuff, It's actually very scientific. It's like, okay, it's when you relax your ego, then you have a higher state of mind that just kicks in. And who wouldn't want that? You don't have to go to Shangri-La for that, It's right there, right here where you are.
Yeah, that's amazing. Everything's inside of us, right? And
Yeah.
we just have to, I love it. I just, a lot of visuals are coming to me. It's like a dark, quiet space that you tap into the flow of all reality, right? So it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, thanks for taking some time to chat with us about your own experience. And I look forward to when your book is officially launched. Let us know, and we'll let everybody else know, and all that stuff.
And if
All
you
right,
want
well,
to,
thank you.
yeah, thank you. And if you want to contact Noelle for more information or to join her workshop, we'll have that link below. So
Yeah.
thank you, Noelle.
Thanks. Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
thank you, Lauren and Lisa. That was really fun. I really appreciate being on your